Jake Morrison looked out the small window of his transport ship as it moved closer to Nexus Prime Space Station. The massive structure looked like a giant metal city floating in the darkness of space. Thousands of lights blinked on its surface, and ships from many different worlds were docked at its ports. Jake felt his stomach twist with worry. This was the most important mission of his life. He was an ambassador for the Terran Federation, which meant he spoke for all humans in the galaxy. At 35 years old, Jake had already helped solve many problems between different alien species. But this time was different. This time, if he failed, there would be war. The Zephyrian Empire was expanding fast across 3 star systems. They were a race of warriors who loved to fight and conquer. Their ships had already destroyed several smaller colonies, and now they were looking at human worlds. The only thing stopping them from attacking was this meeting at Nexus Prime. Jake's team was small but skilled. Colonel Lisa Turner sat across from him, checking her weapons one more time. She was a tough soldier with short brown hair and sharp green eyes. She had fought in many battles and knew how dangerous the Zephyrians could be. Next to her sat Dr. Sam Hughes, a thin man with thick glasses who spent his time studying alien minds. He looked nervous, constantly adjusting his glasses and reading. From his computer pad, "Tell me again about their leader," Jake said to Dr. Hughes. The scientist looked up from his notes. "General Krathvex is their supreme military commander. He has never lost a battle. Zephyrians are about 8 feet tall and have 4 arms. Their skin is like armor, very hard to cut or break. They have sharp claws and are much stronger than humans." Colonel Turner added, "Their whole culture is based on fighting. They think weak species should serve strong ones. To them, we humans look like soft, weak creatures who hide behind machines instead of fighting with our hands." Jake nodded. He had studied this information for months, but hearing it again made him more worried. How could he convince a race of warriors to make peace when they thought humans were weak? The transport ship docked at Nexus Prime with a soft bump. Jake stood up and straightened his dark blue diplomatic uniform. The 3 humans walked through the docking tube into the station. The air smelled different here, full of strange scents. From many worlds, aliens of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. A tall, thin alien with gray skin and large black eyes approached them. "Ambassador Morrison? I am Station Master Quilp. We have prepared Meeting Room 7 for your negotiations." "Thank you," Jake replied. "Have the Zephyrians arrived yet?" "Yes, they came 2 hours ago. General Vex brought a full military escort. They are waiting in the East Wing." Jake felt his heart beat faster. How many in his escort? 20 warriors, all heavily armed. "Do not worry, station security will keep them controlled." As they walked through the station, Jake noticed other aliens stopping to stare at them. Word had spread quickly about these peace talks. Everyone in the galaxy knew that if humans and Zephyrians went to war, it would be bloody and terrible. Many smaller species would be forced to choose sides or be destroyed. They reached Meeting Room 7, a large chamber with a long metal table in the center. Jake sat down and opened his briefcase, pulling out thick folders full of treaty proposals. He had worked on these documents for weeks with the best diplomats and lawyers on Earth. "Remember," Colonel Turner said quietly, "Zephyrians respect strength. Don't show fear even if you feel it," Dr. Hughes added. "Their language is very direct. They don't like long speeches or complicated words. Say what you mean clearly." Jake took a deep breath. He had been in many difficult negotiations before, but never with the fate of humanity hanging in the balance. Through the room's windows, he could see the stars. Out there were human colonies with millions of people who were counting on him. To keep them safe, the door opened with a loud hiss. General Krathvex entered the room, and Jake immediately understood why the Zephyrians were so feared. The alien commander was huge, nearly 8 feet tall, and covered in dark green armor-like skin. His 4 arms moved with deadly grace, and his red eyes seemed to burn with inner fire. Behind him came 3 other Zephyrian officers, all just as imposing. General Vex looked around the room with contempt. His voice was deep and rough when he spoke. "So these are the humans who think they can negotiate with the mighty Zephyrian Empire." Jake stood up slowly, keeping his face calm even though his heart was racing. "General Vex, I am Ambassador Jake Morrison. Thank you for agreeing to these talks." The alien warlord laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "I did not come here to talk, human. I came to see what kind of creatures think they can stand against us. You look even weaker than I expected." Colonel Turner's hand moved toward her weapon, but Jake gave her a small signal to stay calm. This was exactly what he had expected. Zephyrians would try to intimidate them from the very beginning. "Appearances can be deceiving, General," Jake said. "Perhaps we should sit down and discuss how our two species can benefit from peace instead of war." General Vex sat down heavily in the chair across from Jake. The metal chair creaked under his weight. "There is no benefit in peace with weaklings. Strong species rule, weak species serve. This is the way of the universe." Jake opened his first folder. "With respect, General, I believe we can show you that cooperation is stronger than conquest. The documents I have prepared... Documents," General Vex interrupted. "You think words on paper mean anything to warriors? Actions speak louder than words, human. If your species wants to negotiate with us, you must first prove you deserve our respect." The room fell silent. Jake could feel the tension growing like electricity in the air. He had hoped for a difficult negotiation, but it was clear that General Vex had no interest in talking at all. The alien commander was looking for any excuse to declare humans unworthy and begin his attack. Jake realized that everything he had learned about diplomacy might not be enough. This was going to require something more than careful words and written agreements. He was facing a warrior who only understood strength, and somehow Jake had to find a way to speak that language without starting the very war he was trying to prevent. The next morning, Jake woke up early in his small room on Nexus Prime. He had barely slept, thinking about how badly the first day of talks had gone. General Vex had dismissed every idea Jake presented. The alien commander called humans cowards and weaklings. Every time Jake tried to explain the benefits of peace, General Vex would slam his four fists on the table and talk about conquest instead. Jake looked at himself in the mirror as he got dressed. His brown hair was messy, and there were dark circles under his blue eyes. He knew he looked tired, but he had to stay strong. Today was his last real chance to make peace. If these talks failed, the Zephyrian fleet would attack human colonies. Within a month, Colonel Turner was waiting for him in the hallway outside his room. She looked worried too. "Jake, I've been monitoring Zephyrian communications. They're moving more ships toward our border. General Vex is planning something." "What kind of something?" Jake asked as they walked toward the meeting room. "Sure, but his officers keep talking about honor and combat trials. In their culture, when diplomacy fails, they sometimes settle disputes with personal fights." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "You mean like duels?" "Exactly. One warrior against another, winner takes all." Dr. Hughes joined them at the meeting room door. He was carrying a thick stack of papers and looked even more nervous than yesterday. "I've been studying Zephyrian battle customs all night. If General Vex challenges you to combat, you have to accept or he'll consider all humans to be without honor. And if I accept, you'll probably die," Colonel Turner said bluntly. "No human has ever survived single combat with a Zephyrian warrior." Jake took a deep breath and opened the meeting room door. General Vex was already there with his 3 officers. The alien commander looked angry, his red eyes glowing brighter than before. He stood up as soon as Jake entered. "Human," General Vex growled, "I have wasted enough time listening to your weak words. Today you will prove whether your species deserves to exist or should be conquered." Jake sat down and opened his briefcase. He had prepared new treaty proposals during the night, offering the Zephyrians more territory and trade benefits. "General, I have revised our offer. I think you'll find these terms much more favorable to your empire." General Vex looked at the papers for exactly 3 seconds, then swept them off the table with one of his massive arms. The documents scattered across the floor. More words, more paper. "Do you think I am a fool, human?" "Oh, General, I think you're a smart leader who wants what's best for his people." "What's best for my people is strength," General Vex roared. Your species talks about peace because you are too weak to fight. You hide behind machines and weapons because you have no courage. Jake felt his temper rising, but kept his voice calm. General, courage isn't just about fighting. Sometimes it takes more courage to make peace than to make war. The alien commander's 4 fists slammed on the table so hard that the metal cracked. Enough. I am tired of listening to coward words. From coward creatures, your species knows nothing about honor or strength. Jake stood up slowly. He had reached his limit. All his diplomatic training told him to stay calm, but something deeper was stirring inside him. You keep calling us cowards, General, but you're wrong. Humans have fought in thousands of wars. We've died for our beliefs and protected the weak. Don't mistake our desire for peace as fear of fighting, General. Vex's eyes narrowed. Big words from a small creature. If humans are such great warriors, why do you send a diplomat instead of a fighter? Because smart species solve problems with their minds, not just their muscles. Smart. General Vex laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the room.
Ow.
There is no intelligence without strength to back it up. In Zephyrian culture, only those who can fight have the right to speak about important matters. The alien commander walked around the table until he was standing directly in front of Jake. Up close, he was even more intimidating. His 4 arms ended in sharp claws, and his armor-like skin looked like it could stop bullets. I challenge you to ritual combat, human, General Vex declared loudly. Single combat, no weapons except what we choose, no help from others. It takes all. If you win, we will consider your peace treaty. If I win, your species submits to Zephyrian rule. The room went completely silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat pounding in his ears. Colonel Turner stepped forward to object, but Jake raised his hand to stop her. He knew that refusing this challenge would end all hope of peace. General Vex would see it as proof that humans were cowards, and the Zephyrian fleet would attack immediately. But accepting the challenge seemed like suicide. Zephyrians were twice as tall as humans, 4 times as strong, and trained for combat from birth. Jake was a diplomat who spent most of his time reading reports and attending meetings. He had basic military training from his youth, but that was 15 years ago.
What exactly are the rules? Jake asked quietly.
General Vex smiled, showing teeth like sharp knives. Simple rules. We fight until one surrenders or dies. The combat takes place in 1 day. You choose your weapons. I choose mine. No armor except what we normally wear. And if I refuse, then you prove that humans are weaklings who deserve to be conquered. A fleet will begin attacking your colonies immediately. Jake looked at Colonel Turner and Dr. Hughes. Both of them looked terrified. In their eyes, he could see that they thought he was about to make a terrible mistake. But Jake also saw something else, a tiny spark of hope. Maybe, just maybe, there was a way to use this challenge to achieve something that diplomacy couldn't. I accept your challenge, General Vex, Jake said firmly. The alien commander's smile grew wider. Excellent. We fight tomorrow at midday in the station's cargo bay. I will enjoy showing the galaxy what happens to species who think they can negotiate. With their betters, as General Vex and his officers left the room, Jake sat down heavily in his chair. Colonel Turner immediately started arguing. Jake, this is insane. You can't fight him. He'll kill you in seconds. Maybe, Jake replied, but if I don't fight him, he'll kill millions of humans instead. Dr. Hughes was already pulling up files on his computer. We have 24 hours to prepare. I need to study every weakness Zephyrians have. Lisa, you need to train Jake in combat techniques. 1 day isn't enough, Colonel Turner protested. ... Has to be, Jake said. It's all we have. Word of the challenge spread through Nexus Prime within hours. Aliens from dozens of species gathered to watch what most expected to be a very short fight. Betting pools opened across the galaxy. With odds heavily favoring General Vex, most species saw this as a human's desperate last gesture before certain death. But Jake was already thinking differently. This wasn't just about winning a fight. This was about showing the galaxy who humans really were, and maybe, if he was very lucky and very smart, finding a way to turn an enemy into an ally. Jake had 24 hours to prepare for the most important fight of his life. News of the duel spread across the galaxy faster than light travel. Every major news network was sending reporters to Nexus Prime. Alien governments were placing bets on the outcome. Most thought the human diplomat would be dead within minutes of the fight starting. In his quarters, Jake tried to stay calm while his team worked frantically around him. Dr. Hughes had spread dozens of books and computer files across every surface. The scientist's glasses kept sliding down his nose as he read. Through years of research about Zephyrian anatomy and fighting styles, their skin is like natural armor, Dr. Hughes explained, pointing to a detailed diagram. But there are weak spots at the joints where their arms and legs bend. The plates don't overlap there, so a sharp blade might be able to cut through. Colonel Turner was setting up training equipment in the small room. She had requisitioned practice weapons and protective gear from station security. Jake, we need to work on your footwork. Can't match his strength, so you have to be faster and smarter. Jake picked up a training sword and tried a few practice swings. His muscles were already sore from the morning's exercises. How do Zephyrians usually fight? They use all four arms at once, Dr. Hughes said, consulting his notes. Usually two. Arms hold weapons, while the other two grab their opponent. Once they get hold of you, they use their claws to tear you apart. That's encouraging, Jake muttered. Colonel Turner handed him a lightweight shield. The key is to never let him grab you. Stay mobile, hit and run, look for openings. Don't try to block his attacks directly because he'll overpower you every time. For the next 6 hours, Jake trained harder than he had since his military academy days 15 years ago. Colonel Turner made him practice dodging, rolling, and quick strikes until his legs shook with exhaustion. His hands were covered in blisters from gripping the practice weapons. During a break, Jake sat on his bed and stared at the ceiling. Lisa, be honest with me. What are my chances? Colonel Turner sat down next to him. She was quiet for a long moment. In a straight fight? Maybe 1 in 1,000? But Jake, this isn't just about fighting. You're good at reading people, at understanding what they really want. Maybe you can figure out something we're missing. Dr. Hughes looked up from his research. I've been thinking about something. General Vex could have just ordered his fleet to attack our colonies. He didn't need to come here personally or issue this challenge. Why did he? What do you mean? Jake asked. Maybe this isn't really about proving humans are weak. Maybe he wants to see if we have any warrior spirit at all. In Zephyrian culture, even a brave defeat is better than cowardly surrender. Jake thought about this. So he's testing us? Possibly. I've been studying his military record. General Vex has conquered dozens of species, but he's also made alliances. With a few, the ones he respects are usually those who fought bravely against him, even when they lost. This gave Jake an idea, but he wasn't sure it would work. What happens in Zephyrian culture when two warriors fight and both show honor? Dr. Hughes flipped through his files. Sometimes they become allies instead of enemies. But that usually only happens when the fighters are equally matched. We're not equally matched, Colonel Turner pointed out. No, but maybe that's not the point, Jake said slowly. Maybe the point is to show that humans will fight for what we believe in, even against impossible odds. While Jake and his team prepared, General Vex was also getting ready for the duel. The alien commander spent hours in meditation following ancient Zephyrian warrior traditions. His 3 officers watched respectfully as he performed ritual exercises, with his forearms moving in perfect coordination, but General Vex was troubled. He had studied human military history and knew they were capable of surprising tactics. Humans had won many battles against stronger enemies by using clever strategies. The general expected Jake to try some kind of trick during the fight. Commander, one of his officers said, the human is weak. This will be over quickly. General Vex turned his burning red eyes toward the younger warrior. Never underestimate an enemy, especially one desperate enough to accept a challenge. He cannot win. Desperate creatures are dangerous. But surely no human can threaten a Zephyrian warrior. Humans destroyed the Krellin battle fleet at Proxima 7 using ships half the size of their enemies, General Vex replied. They held off the Mantis invasion for 3 years, when everyone expected them to fall in 3 weeks. They are physically weak, but they think in ways that other species do not. The general continued his meditation, but part of his mind kept wondering what the human diplomat was planning. Jake Morrison had shown no fear when accepting the challenge, which was unusual. Most species would send their greatest warrior to face a Zephyrian general. Instead, the humans had chosen a negotiator. It made no sense unless they had some hidden strategy. Back in Jake's quarters, the preparation continued. Jake practiced with different weapons until he found ones that felt comfortable in his hands. He chose a plasma blade, which was light and sharp, and a small energy shield that wouldn't slow him down. Colonel Turner taught him how to use his smaller size as an advantage, slipping past larger opponents and striking at vulnerable spots. As the hours passed, more and more aliens arrived at Nexus Prime to watch the duel. Stations, bars, and observation decks were packed with creatures from across the galaxy. Everyone wanted to see what would happen when human diplomacy met Zephyrian warrior culture. Some aliens were taking bets on how long Jake would survive. The most optimistic gave him 5 minutes. Others thought General Vex would end the fight in less than 1 minute. A few cynical observers suggested that Jake might surrender immediately to save his own life. But there were also aliens who hoped the human would surprise everyone. Species that had been threatened by Zephyrian expansion wanted to see if someone could stand up to their military might. If a human diplomat could hold his own against General Vex, even briefly, it might inspire others to resist Zephyrian conquest. As the night wore on, Jake finally stopped training and tried to rest. His body ached from the intensive preparation, but his mind was still racing. He kept thinking about what Dr. Hughes had said about honor and respect in Zephyrian culture. Colonel Turner sat in a chair next to his bed, cleaning her weapons. "Jake, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that you're doing the right thing. Even if we lose, at least we'll lose fighting." "We're not going to lose," Jake said quietly. "How can you be so sure?" Jake stared at the ceiling again. "I'm starting to understand something about General Vex. He didn't come here to slaughter a weakling. He came here to find out if humans deserve to exist as an independent species. Tomorrow isn't just about fighting. It's about showing him who we really are." Dr. Hughes looked over from his research desk. "And who are we, Jake? We're the species that chooses to build instead of destroy, that looks for solutions instead of just using force. But when we have to fight, we fight smart and we never give up." The 3 humans spent the rest of the night making final preparations. Jake reviewed everything he had learned about Zephyrian combat techniques. Colonel Turner checked and rechecked his equipment. Dr. Hughes memorized every piece of biological data that might give Jake an advantage. When morning came, Jake felt ready. Not ready to win, necessarily, but ready to show the galaxy what humans were capable of when their backs were against the wall. He dressed in light combat armor and picked up his chosen weapons. In a few hours, he would face General Vex in front of representatives from dozens of worlds. The outcome would determine not just his own fate, but the future of human civilization in the galaxy. The cargo bay of Nexus Prime had been transformed into a fighting arena. Station workers had cleared out all the storage containers and equipment, leaving a large circular space with a smooth metal floor. Around the edges, they had built viewing platforms where hundreds of aliens sat waiting for the duel to begin. Jake walked slowly toward the center of the arena. His light combat armor felt strange after years of wearing diplomatic suits. The plasma blade at his side hummed quietly, and his energy shield was strapped to his left arm. Every step echoed in the huge space, and he could feel thousands of alien eyes watching his every move. The crowd was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. There were tall, thin Andromedans with their silver skin gleaming under the lights. Short, furry Betelgeusians chattered excitedly in their high-pitched voices. The snake-like Centaurians coiled around the upper viewing platforms, their multiple heads swaying as they watched. Representatives from dozens of species had come to witness what most expected to be a very short fight. Colonel Turner and Dr. Hughes sat in the human section of the viewing area. Jake could see the worry on their faces, but they also looked proud. They knew he was probably going to die, but he was facing death with courage. A loud horn sounded, and the crowd fell silent. General Vex entered the arena from the opposite side. The alien commander looked even more impressive than usual. His dark green armor-like skin had been polished until it shone, and all four of his arms moved with deadly grace. He carried different weapons in each hand: a curved blade, a spiked mace, a chain whip, and a short spear. The two fighters met in the center of the arena. Up close, the size difference was shocking. General Vex towered over Jake by more than 2 feet. His forearms were each as thick as Jake's entire torso. When he breathed, Jake could see the sharp teeth in his massive jaw. Station Master Quilp stood between them, his gray skin looking pale under the bright lights. "The rules are simple," he announced in a voice that carried throughout the arena. "Single combat until one fighter yields or cannot continue. No outside interference. No weapons except those chosen by each combatant. Are both fighters ready?" Jake nodded, his mouth too dry to speak. General Vex smiled, showing all of his knife-like teeth. "I am ready to show this human what real strength looks like, and let the combat begin," Station Master Quilp declared, quickly moving away from the two fighters. For a moment, both Jake and General Vex stood perfectly still. The alien commander was studying Jake, looking for signs of fear or weakness. Jake was trying to remember everything Colonel Turner had taught him about staying mobile and finding openings. Then General Vex let out a thunderous war cry that echoed through the entire arena. The sound was so loud and terrifying that several aliens in the crowd jumped back in fear. The general charged forward with incredible speed, all 4 weapons striking at once toward Jake's head and body. Jake barely managed to dodge the attack. He threw himself to the right, rolling across the metal floor as the alien's weapons whistled through the air where he had been standing. The crowd gasped. They had expected the human to be cut down immediately. General Vex spun around and attacked, again his forearms moving like a deadly dance. Jake raised his energy shield to block the curved blade while ducking under the mace. The spear scraped across his armor, leaving a deep scratch but not penetrating. He managed to strike back with his plasma blade, but it only bounced off the general's thick skin. For the next several minutes, Jake used every trick Colonel Turner had taught him. He stayed in constant motion, never letting General Vex get a solid grip on him. When the alien commander attacked high, Jake went low. When Vex struck left, Jake dodged right. He was like a small bird flying around a giant cat, too quick to catch but too weak to do serious damage. The crowd began to murmur with surprise. No one had expected the human to last this long. Jake managed to damage 2 of General Vex's weapons and even inflicted some minor cuts on the alien's arms and legs. But everyone could see that Jake was getting tired, while General Vex seemed as strong as ever. General Vex noticed the change too. His attacks became more careful and precise. Instead of trying to overwhelm Jake with brute force, he began to fight more tactically. He used his longer reach to keep Jake at a distance, forcing the human to come to him instead of letting Jake choose when and where to attack. Jake realized he was in serious trouble. His breathing was getting heavy and his movements were becoming slower. General Vex had barely broken into a sweat. The alien commander was learning Jake's fighting patterns and adapting to them. But something unexpected was happening. As the fight continued, General Vex began to show a different attitude toward Jake. The alien's initial contempt was being replaced by something that looked almost like respect. Jake was clearly outmatched, but he kept fighting with determination and skill. The turning point came when Jake was backed into a corner of the arena. General Vex raised all 4 weapons for what looked like a finishing blow. Jake had no room to dodge and his energy shield was almost drained. It seemed like the duel was about to end. But instead of giving up, Jake did something desperate and dangerous. He dropped his shield and threw himself directly at General Vex, getting inside the alien's weapon reach where the long arms became a disadvantage. Jake's plasma blade sliced through the general's primary weapon, while his free hand found one of the weak spots Dr. Hughes had identified. General Vex roared in pain and surprise. His broken weapon clattered to the floor and green blood began to flow from the cut on his arm. But Jake's desperate move had cost him too. One of the general's claws had raked across his chest, tearing through his armor and leaving deep wounds. Both fighters staggered back from each other, breathing hard and bleeding. The crowd was completely silent, shocked by what they were seeing. The human diplomat had actually managed to hurt the mighty Zephyrian general. General Vex looked down at his wounded arm, then at Jake. For the first time since the fight began, the alien commander's expression showed something other than confident superiority. "You fight better than I expected, human." "You're not so bad yourself," Jake replied. Pressing his hand against his bleeding chest, the two fighters circled each other more cautiously now. Both had been hurt. Both had proven they could damage the other. The nature of the fight was changing. From a quick execution to a real battle between two determined warriors. General Vex came at Jake again. But this time he wasn't trying to simply overwhelm him. The alien was fighting with the respect he would show to a worthy opponent. Jake responded by fighting smarter instead of just trying to survive. He began to anticipate the general's moves and counter them more effectively. The duel continued. For another 10 minutes, with both fighters giving everything they had. Jake was bleeding from multiple wounds, but he had also managed to damage more of General Vex's weapons and inflict several cuts on the alien's thick skin. Finally, Jake saw his chance. General Vex overextended himself during an attack, leaving his neck momentarily exposed. Jake lunged forward with his plasma blade, bringing it to rest against the alien commander's throat. Both fighters froze, breathing heavily and covered in blood. Jake had done the impossible. He had brought the mighty General Vex to a standstill. The crowd erupted in shocked chatter. No one could believe what they were seeing. The human diplomat had actually managed to gain the upper hand against one of the galaxy's most feared warriors. But what happened next would shock everyone. Even more than the fight itself, Jake stood with his plasma blade pressed against General Vex's throat. Both fighters were breathing hard and covered in blood. The entire arena was silent except for the sound of their heavy breathing. Hundreds of aliens watched in stunned amazement. The human diplomat had actually defeated the mighty Zephyrian general. In that moment of victory, Jake could have done many things. He could have demanded General Vex's surrender. He could have forced the alien to accept the peace treaty. He could have proven that humans were stronger than Zephyrians thought. But instead, Jake did something that no one in the arena expected. He lowered his weapon and stepped back. "You fought with great honor, General," Jake said quietly. "As did I. Now we can speak as warriors." The crowd erupted in confused chatter. Aliens turned to each other, trying to understand what had just happened. In their seats, Colonel Turner and Dr. Hughes stared in shock. Jake had won the duel, but instead of claiming victory, he was offering respect to his defeated enemy. General Vex stood motionless for a long moment, staring at Jake with his burning red eyes. Green blood dripped from several wounds on his arms and chest. His remaining weapons hung loosely in his hands. The alien commander looked more confused than anyone else in the arena. "I do not understand, human," General Vex said slowly. "You had victory within your grasp. Why do you show mercy to a defeated enemy? In Zephyrian culture, the winner takes everything from the loser." Jake wiped blood from a cut on his forehead. "Because the goal was never to defeat you, General. It was to prove that humans can fight with honor when we have to, but we prefer to build rather than destroy. True strength isn't just about winning fights. It's about knowing when not to fight at all." General Vex tilted his massive head, trying to process these words. The alien commander had lived his entire life believing that might made right, that the strong ruled because they had the power to do so. He had conquered dozens of worlds and destroyed anyone who opposed him. But Jake's actions revealed something he had never considered before. "You speak of building instead of destroying?" General Vex said. "But how can the weak build anything lasting without strength to protect it?" "We're not weak," Jake replied. "We're different. Humans have fought in thousands of wars across our history. We've died protecting our families and our beliefs. We've faced enemies much stronger than ourselves and found ways to win. But we've also learned that some victories cost more than they're worth." Jake gestured toward the viewing platforms filled with aliens from dozens of species. "Look around this arena, General. Every species here has something to offer the galaxy. The Andromedans are master engineers. The Betelgeusians are brilliant. Scientists? The Centaurians are gifted artists. If we spend all our time fighting each other, we lose the chance to learn from each other. General Vex followed Jake's gaze around the arena. The first time he seemed to really see the other species as more than potential enemies or subjects to be conquered. His forearms slowly lowered his remaining weapons to the floor. "You fought me with courage," the general said. "You could have killed me just now, but you chose not to. This is not weakness." "No," Jake said firmly. "It takes more courage, too. Spare an enemy than to destroy one. It takes more strength to build a friendship than to win a war." Medical teams began moving into the arena to treat both fighters' wounds. Jake winced as a human medic examined the claw marks across his chest. General Vex allowed a Zephyrian doctor to clean his cuts, but his eyes never left Jake's face. "My culture," General Vex said as the medics worked, "we have a saying, honor your enemy, for he makes you strong." I thought this meant to respect their fighting ability, but perhaps it means something more. "What do you think it means?" Jake asked. "Perhaps it means that true enemies can become true allies. That the greatest strength comes not from conquest, but from unity." The crowd was beginning to understand what was happening. Word spread quickly through the viewing platforms and beyond. This wasn't just a duel anymore. It was the beginning of something new, a friendship between two very different species. 3 days later, Jake sat in the same meeting room where the peace talks had begun. But now the atmosphere was completely different. General Vex sat across from him, his wounds bandaged, but his attitude transformed. The alien commander listened carefully as Jake explained the details of the proposed treaty. "These trade agreements will benefit both our species," Jake said, pointing to a chart showing shipping routes between human and Zephyrian worlds. "Your people are master warriors and miners. Ours are skilled farmers and engineers. Together, we can build something stronger than either of us could create alone." General Vex nodded slowly, "And these territorial boundaries, fair borders that give both our peoples room to grow without threatening each other. If disputes arise, we settle them through negotiation, not war." "What about other species who might see our alliance as a threat?" Jake smiled. "We invite them to join us. Galaxy is big enough for everyone to prosper if we work together instead of fighting each other." General Vex stood up and extended one of his 4 hands toward Jake. "Ambassador Morrison, I accept this treaty on behalf of the Zephyrian Empire, but I also propose something more. A military alliance between our species. When threatened by outside forces, we stand together." Jake shook the alien's massive hand. "I accept, General. From this day forward, humans and Zephyrians are not just allies, but friends." The peace treaty was signed that afternoon in front of representatives from across the galaxy. The ceremony was broadcast to billions of beings on thousands of worlds. What had started as a potential war between two species had become a model for cooperation throughout the galaxy. General Vex insisted on adding a special clause to the treaty. It recognized humans as an honorable warrior species. He also established a cultural exchange program that would allow young Zephyrians to study human diplomacy while young humans could learn Zephyrian combat techniques. Months later, when news reporters asked Jake about the day that changed galactic history, he would always say the same thing. The real victory wasn't in the fighting, it was in the understanding that came after. General Vex taught me that strength and honor matter, but I showed him that wisdom and mercy matter too. The story of the duel spread throughout the galaxy as a legend about human nature. It became known as the day when humanity proved that even when pushed to violence, they possessed the wisdom to choose a better path. Other species began to seek out human diplomats to help solve their own conflicts. General Vex often spoke about that day as well. He would tell young Zephyrian warriors about the human, who could have claimed victory through force, but chose to build friendship instead. That, he would say, is what true strength looks like. The alliance between humans and Zephyrians lasted for generations, becoming one of the strongest partnerships in galactic history. And it all began with a human diplomat who understood that sometimes the best way to win a fight is to choose not to fight at all.